Good evening, everyone. Today is December 1st, 2021. We are in a legislative session. Apologies first from the mayor. She had a previous, she had an emergency meeting, and she'll be joining us hopefully later through the meeting. So we're going to start, we're going to kick off the meeting. Martha, no, sorry. We're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Okay. Trustee White?
present.
Trustee Fritchie?
Present.
Trustee Lopez?
Present.
Deputy Mayor Quesada?
Present.
And then Mayor Levin is going to be joining us at a later time.
Yes.
Good. So we're going to have, is there anybody here in the public that would like to address the board on any of the resolutions on the agenda? If so, please click on your virtual hand.
And just to clarify some stuff for the public that is watching this, we modified a little bit of the agenda. Probably if you watched it yesterday or early today, we changed the order of that. That doesn't mean that we're not going to be talking about the topics that are part of the agenda originally. We just changed them, modified some of the stuff. We want the mayor to be part of the rest of the agenda that's going to go along with this. So thank you.
Okay. Do you see anybody, Jamie?
Talking with it on mute. No, I don't.
No. Okay. So we'll go to the village board resolutions. Approval of minutes, November 17th, 2021. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the minutes of the November 17th, 2021 regular meeting as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any comments from the board?
Okay.
Martha?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Approval of minutes, November 19th, 2021. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the minutes of the November 19th, 2021 special meeting as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments? Martha?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Approval of minutes, November 29th, 2021. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the minutes of the November 29th, 2021 special meeting as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments from the board?
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Approval of voucher detail, December 1st, 2021. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the voucher detail report dated December 1st, 2021, and the amount of $843,782.75. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, hold on.
Aye.
Sorry.
No
Any
comment.
comments from the board? I apologize. Any comments from the board? No.
Okay.
I want to thank, before that, I want to thank Dale again for the lovely note that was done. You know, the number was a little bit different than 2 weeks ago. And there's a reason why, and obviously that was the water bill that we got from New York City was a big part of that. So just so people that watch our voucher details. So thank you, Dale, for giving me the heads up. Martha?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Call for public hearing, proposed local law 17, 2021, titled A Local Law Amending the Effective Date of Portions of Local Law 8, 2021, Chapter 247, Towing. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby calls for a public hearing to take place at 7:30 p.m. December 15, 2021, to consider a proposed local law 17, 2021, titled A Local Law Amending the Effective Date of Portions of Local Law 8, 2021, Towing of the Village of Ossining Code, and be it further resolved that the proposed local law amends the effective date of Section 247-584 from January 1st, 2022 until July 1st, 2022. And be further resolved that the rest of Local Law 8, 2021 will be effective on January 1st, 2022. And be further resolved that as a result of Chapter 417 of the laws of 2021 signed into law on September 2nd, 2021 by Governor Hochul, which law authorizes any public body to meet and take such actions authorized by law without allowing the public to be physically present at the meeting. The public hearing will be conducted remotely via the Zoom platform with instruction for those who wish to watch and or participate listed below. Oh, and be it further resolved that comments regarding the proposed local law will be accepted by the Board of Trustees at bot@villageofaustining.org. Do we have, do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Any comments from the board on this? Okay. All right, so Martha?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Adoption of changes to fee schedule for 2022 other than water and sewer fees, whereas the village's adopted financial goals and policies requires in part the establishment and periodic evaluation of user charges and fees to help reduce reliance on real property taxes. And whereas at this time, village management has recommended certain changes to the adopted fee schedule for 2022. And now therefore be resolved, the village's fee schedule is hereby amended effective January 1st, 2022 for the following user charges and fees as seen below. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments from the board?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Second. Okay. Adoption of changes to fee schedule for 2022, water and sewer rents and fees. Whereas the village's adopted financial goals and policies requires in part the establishment and periodic evaluation of user charges and fees to generate revenue sufficient to support the cost of the water and sewer funds. And whereas at this time, village management has recommended a 5.0 increase to water and sewer rates in the adopted fee schedule for 2022 and for meter fees and related service connection charges. Now therefore be it resolved, the village's fee schedule for water and sewer rates and fees is hereby amended effective January 1st, 2022 as follows. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Any comments from the board?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
So Martha and Stuart, and I know the mayor wants to be part of that resolution H. Is there any way that we can skip H for now and do I?
Of course,
Thank you.
absolutely. Martha will just go out of order for that.
Okay, give me 1 second. Let me just make a note of that for the minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The fire department removal from active roles. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austining hereby removes Frank Vassallo from the active roles of the Austining Fire Department Independent Host Company. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments from the board?
I believe that Frank Vassallo passed away recently, and he was a big part of our community, and he will be missed.
Thank you, Dana.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
So here, I'm going to ask for help because the mayor is not in with us yet. So I'm trying to figure it out.
Trustee Quezada, if you want, we do have another resolution, which is under new business, if you want to deal with that one.
Yes, please.
And we can just, Martha, that's under item IX, resolution 8, new business.
give me 1 second.
Sure.
Okay, authorizing retention of bond, Shortnick and King to conduct an investigation of a personnel complaint. Resolved that upon review by the Corporation Council, the village manager is authorized to sign a retainer agreement with Bond, Shortnick and King, 1010 Franklin Avenue, Suite 200, Garden City, New York, to conduct an investigation regarding a personnel complaint involving a village employee, SSN 0198, and be it further resolved that the hourly rates to be charged by council, other rates detailed in council November 29, 2021 email. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments?
Comments from the board? No. Martha?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Do we go to the public
Trustee
hearing now?
Quezada, we could do a few things if you want. We could do, I know Karen has her own administrative report, but if you want to hear from myself and the
Yes,
chief, we could do that.
I was going to ask if we can do that a little bit out of order, because there's again, there's some items that they're critical, but you know, we'd like to be the whole board in here to do that.
Understood.
So please, yes, thank you, Stuart.
So Karen, do you want to hold yours till the mayor is here? It's up to you.
I'll hold mine till after the board announcements
Okay.
and after the mayor's announcements. Yes.
Okay. So Martha, it's okay. I'll do mine.
Okay. Go ahead, Stuart.
I feel this is sort of like a commercial at a TV show, and you sort of like kind of drag it out. But it's okay. So I will talk slowly. There is a planning board meeting tomorrow night. It is actually it is a scheduled meeting of the planning board because the agenda has been lengthy the past couple of meetings. So and there are a number of items on. I believe 14 Water Street is on again for certain discussions, and there are other matters. So if anyone wants to see the agenda, see the documents that are on, they can go to the village's webpage. The meeting will begin promptly at 7 p.m. There is another December meeting. The regularly scheduled December meeting of the planning board will be on December 21. That just to note, that is the third Tuesday of the month. They're usually the fourth, but since the fourth is during that Christmas New Year week, it's going to actually be on the 21st. Next week, we have a meeting of historic preservation on Monday. There is an application before the HPC. And Tuesday night is a meeting of the Environmental Advisory Council. Both meetings can be viewed through the Zoom link. And if you want to see the application that relates to the HPC, that is also viewable. I believe that involves an application to place some solar panels on a property that is on Still Court, which is within the historic district at that location. So that's on for Tuesday night. Other than that, something that I guess just for the board and folks to keep in the back, the village manager and I, not the village manager and I apologize, the planning director and I have been speaking with some folks who would be interested in utilizing the heliport, which is at 47 Water Street, that some of you may know about. That is formerly the location which would used to be the test well location. And now there are other folks there. I have been looking at it from both a zoning and both a legal perspective as to what to do. It does appear that sometime back in the early to mid 80s, there was an application to both the Federal Aviation Administration and the New York State DOT to permit a helipad at that location. I believe it was as part of a site plan approval process back then. It should also, though, be kept in mind that that property was at that time zoned commercial. It is now wholly residential as part of what's called the PRD zone, planned residential development. So there are some issues that have to be dealt with. I expect that we will be coming to the Board of Trustees because even if it is fully allowed to operate, the board may well want to set certain regulations in terms of number of flights, times of flights, and things like that, similar to what the town does with regard to the GE helipad up in the unincorporated portion of the town. So that's something else that is coming up. Another thing that will be coming up with regard to 115 South Highland. You folks may know that's one of the apartment buildings there. Their signage for their apartment building actually is in the village's right of way. They had, in fact, sought a new sign permit, and the building inspector pointed out that it's actually in the right of way. So they will be coming before the board at a later date to discuss the issue of a potential license agreement to keep their signs where they are. I believe there are 2 signs at that location. So that's what's going on with regard to that. I have been getting information with regard to cannabis legislation and zoning. E-code has been very helpful in that, in sending different pieces of legislation that are coming through. And it is not expected, though, until probably at least mid-2022 that we will probably start seeing anything, because even though there is a cannabis control commission now in New York State, they haven't promulgated any rules or regulations yet. And until that happens, we really can't get to the next step. But since there are certain tax issues that involved, we're probably looking at least the middle part of 2022 before that happens. But that will, require the board to perhaps take certain action with regard to location, timing, and other local zoning restrictions, which it is permitted to do under the state law. I spoke for as long as I can, so I will turn it back to Martha. Thank you, folks.
Does the police chief want to go next? Or do you want to wait for the mayor?
Whatever you need. Not a lot to report from the police department. The board just got an email from me a little while ago talking about an arrest that we made yesterday. The school district put out a message about a child being approached on Croton Avenue. This is not the first incident of this type in our community. We've had a number of reports of young children being approached by a motorist in a vehicle. Today, detectives made an arrest of a 41-year-old Ossining man. He was seen in local court and released. So we will continue to assign additional resources to the area of the kids that are going to Roosevelt School, but we'll be encouraging parents to be vigilant and watch over their young ones and neighbors as well, as this is something that's incredibly difficult to detect and prevent. Notwithstanding, we will be out there. In outreach efforts, Detective Chavez is at the library right now with his chess tournament going on. Looks like that's well attended. And that's pretty much it for us. Thanks.
Hello, everybody. Sorry about being late.
Mayor, so you.
Hi, Manny, could you just tell me where we are on the agenda, please?
So we pretty much finished the resolutions. There's only one item on the resolution that is left, which is part of the budget. The Stewart did his report. The chief did his report. We are pending Candace's report based on your arrival. So now that you're here, the floor is yours, Mayor.
Okay. So I'm only going to share, since you did announce, I'm sorry, thank you. Sorry I'm late. I'm only going to tell you, based on the Zoom that's still going on, but I had to take an emergency call, is that COVID is alive and well in Westchester. And we really, as a community in Westchester and in, even though the New York numbers look pretty good, people have gone, I guess with Thanksgiving, having just passed Thanksgiving, I get tested every single week because I work in a community center where there are many, many, many children, both special needs, nursery school, and seniors. And so I had to get on a call because of an outbreak, and that sets up a whole bunch of stuff. But man, it is still with us. So I would just say to everyone who is listening, especially those with children, that it ain't over. And it's probably going to get, it's going to be with us for quite a while longer. So I just hope everybody gets vaccinated. That's all I have to say. And luckily I had to go to this meeting because people are now yelling at each other on my other Zoom meeting, because it was discovered that obviously it started from a person who wasn't vaccinated. So they're still yelling at each other. I'm happy to be at this meeting. That's all I have to tell you. It's a much happier meeting. It's going to be a great meeting in 2 minutes. Again, apologies, but and apparently, Deputy Mayor, when I'm not around, the meeting goes much more quickly. So I'm just gonna say, I gotta like look at the video and wonder what that's about.
No, it is not. It wasn't that you know, I've only been chair, actually, I've been chair in the legislative portion. So sometimes it does go a little bit quicker, but we have not done the announcements in our end. But thank you, Mayor, for bringing that up. Actually, that's something that.
Oh, you didn't do the announcements.
No, we have not yet. So I think we want to go back into the public hearing matter, Stuart.
Okay.
Because that will be the first item of that, unless we want to switch orders.
Okay, so you started, Stuart and Kevin. Oh, okay. Am I muted?
No, Stuart
Mayor,
was muted.
Where we are, Mayor, is the only administrative report outstanding is Karen's.
Okay.
The trustee and the mayor's announcements are outstanding. We have not voted on the resolution for the budget, and we have the public hearing with regard to the local law still to go.
Okay, let me suggest this just for flow. It seems to me that the way to go is have Karen Diatori, village manager, do her. Is that a no? You want to wait on that?
Karen, you're muted.
You're muted, Karen.
I think that you have some exciting announcements. I
do, but that's fine. I just thought that it would go right.
I had some detail that would follow your announcements.
Okay, so why don't we go to you and then we'll go back to the rest, to the beginning. So look, if you haven't read the paper and you haven't watched CBS and NBC and read the mayor's message and the 6 or 7 other venues of information, Ossining, as long shot as we were, one, the DRI, which I hate using the letters, it is a $10 million grant that is based on infrastructure improvements given by the state to a very select few municipalities. It's they didn't do one last year, and this year they changed it up a little bit. So we won a grant of $10 million for improvements, and the governor was here last Monday, a week, not this past Monday, the one before that, to give us a very nice size check, and Haverstraw is the other winner over the other 10 million. We've applied for this grant before. I'm going to tell you that I think that so many of us know the story of Ossining. Most of us, not all, but I would say most, are very happy to live here and are proud to be a part of this community. But sometimes it's in how one presents one's story that puts you over the top. It's not always just the data points and the messages and the sentences. We're going to show a video, I think, right, Karen? Oh, you're on mute.
Jamie, can we tee that up?
Yeah, I just need a moment. I didn't know that I needed that, so it's going to take me a couple minutes.
Oh, I thought that was the idea, but
give me just a moment.
That's okay. So I will say this. You're going to see a video if you haven't had a chance to look at it, and it would be good to put it into this session so that it's also part of our minutes, if you will. Everyone in front of the camera and behind the camera is from Ossining. Everyone is from Ossining who participated. Some of the businesses that we looked at and some of the people who ended up on the cutting floor, because it's 10 minutes long, which for a video is actually really long, and I'll explain why it's so long, also participated. But we had amazing editing team and directors and producers who are Emmy award winning. I thought they won 2 Emmys. Apparently they won 7 Emmys, which is just unbelievable. And they are residents of Ossining and they work in Ossining. So everybody was involved. I do have to say that the village manager and her staff, if I name every person, I will mess it up. I will be wrong somewhere along the line. And I don't want to be wrong in this, because for those of us that got to see it before it went to the governor's office or to the economic development office that votes on this, one of us jumped up and said, geez, I'd give us $10 million if we had it. It's actually a moving video. I don't want to ruin it, but I will say that you will notice that one of the trustees did the voiceover. You'll have to guess at the end which one, and hint, out of the 5 of us, it wasn't me. And she and her husband did an amazing job. So a second hint for who that was. But everybody, there were a lot of people involved since, I would say, June. It's a long process. It is a very intense process. And all the work still got done in the village in the middle of a pandemic. We were such a long shot. All I kept saying to the village manager and to the trustees, it's worth the investment to present it in a way that would show the soul of our village to people who may know us by name but aren't familiar. And if we don't win it, because we didn't think we would, we will be able to use it for economic development purposes and to really promote this village in the way that most of us feel about it. So I'm going to, Jamie, you're ready, yeah?
I am. I'm not sure if I have to be on mute or not for everyone to hear the video. So if you don't hear it when it starts, just
say so.
You know,
give a nod.
So I hope you guys all have a cup of tea or coffee, nothing stronger, and enjoy.
Okay.
Jamie, I think you have to be on mute. Jamie?
I'm not on mute.
It's not, there's
Can't hear it.
There's no audio.
I can hear it. Let's see. Let's see. I have it all the way up. No?
No.
Oh,
I know we've had this problem before.
I still have the same laptop.
It's not your laptop, it's in the settings. So I'm not sure what you have to do to adjust the settings.
Let me stop the share.
It's not your lap. It's not your laptop though.
Okay, so let me see here.
When you go to share, Jamie, in share screen on the bottom left, there's the share audio.
Yeah, you have to hit.
You have to click. You have to share. You have to click that as well. There's also optimized for. Yeah.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah, that'll do it.
All right.
All right. We're going to start over.
The village of Ossining is building on its success. We have identified a dozen shovel-ready projects that will benefit from DRI funding. This one-time gritty prison town has come a long way, and we're looking ahead with optimism and energy. Once just another left-behind Main Street, our historic downtown district has become a hub of entrepreneurial energy. In the past decade, an award-winning coffee shop, highly rated restaurants, a high-end salon, a toy store, home store, and soon a bookstore have opened their doors.
Ossining was sleeping for many, many years, and that is a huge wake-up. Not only with the people that are moving in, there is a huge young crowd moving in that love small shops and they love the downtown, the small village.
With more than 27,000 residents, the village of Ossining is the 10th most populous municipality in Westchester County. It is also among the most racially diverse. Our immigrant populations bring energy and enterprise, further fueling Ossining's economic growth.
El pueblo de Ossining me ha ayudado a mí en mucho. Una, la comunidad es muy linda, ¿verdad? En todo sentido, todo, no color, blanco, moreno, hispano, todo. Es el pueblo que en la comunidad es grande y hay mucha ayuda. Entonces eso le ayuda a uno para salir adelante y darse a conocer, ¿entiendes? Con la ayuda de usted.
I chose Ossining because of the diverse community that's here. I think it was an untapped market that people would be coming here and finding that Ossining is a space that is just ready for growth.
The village is currently focused on the redevelopment and adaptive reuse of underutilized and vacant properties in the downtown waterfront district. One of them is 200 Main. This magnificent and long vacant Beaux-Arts Bank building stands at the very top of Main Street. A village-owned property, it is being remediated with a grant from New York State's Main Street program. With additional funding, we will finally restore and sell this historic property, returning it to the tax rolls while creating jobs and a vital marquee gateway to our downtown. We will also improve the main downtown intersection, whose five-corner configuration dates to the early 19th century. It will become more attractive and pedestrian-friendly with safety upgrades, ADA accessibility, and new signaling. In the 1970s, urban renewal claimed the south side of Main Street. The properties remain in village hands as surface parking. It is high time we redeveloped Market Square and made our downtown whole again. An RFP is in the works for these two centrally located and desirable properties. We envision a mixed-use development that will fuel Ossoning's entrepreneurial movement and remain a home for our beloved farmers market, a gathering place for 20 years.
We have a very aspirational community, which means that it's going to invest in itself. And the people of Ossining are investing in Ossining, and they do that with a passion.
During these past 2 years of unprecedented challenges, Ossining residents pulled together to support local businesses and each other.
So I opened Penny and Ting 3.5 years ago. It wasn't like a Toys R Us toy store. It needed the right vibe, it needed the right building, and it needed the right community to support it. And I really, really lucked out. And even during the pandemic, this town rallied. They chose to shop here instead of Amazon, instead of Target, instead of Walmart. And that's makes all the difference in the world.
Hop on down to the market on a Saturday after walking the dog and get my shopping done, get some coffee at the coffee shop, walk back to the house. We do make it a family activity every Saturday. It's an opportunity for us all to spend some time together.
Healthcare is an emerging growth area for jobs in Ossining. With approximately 250 employees, Open Door Family Medical Centers, Ossining's largest nonprofit, is headquartered here in the downtown waterfront district. Open Door recently invested $5.1 million in a second building and will use $20 million of public and private funding for the build-out. During COVID, the digital divide became clearer than ever. DRI funding will close the technology gap through the downtown and waterfront neighborhoods and ensure that public gathering spaces have consistent and reliable public Wi-Fi. One of Ossining's greatest assets is its picturesque location on the banks of the Hudson, just south of Haverstraw Bay, the river's widest point. In its post-industrial life, the Ossining waterfront is our most popular recreational area. Recent upgrades to waterfront parks and trails and the newly developed Harbor Square have greatly enhanced and increased public access to the river. A new ice cream stand doesn't hurt either.
Great music down here in the summer, food trucks, it really brings the community together. So since we opened, 2 years ago, we've had quite a few people call and even ask if they could dock their boat to come have dinner at the restaurant or go to the playground or have an ice cream. And so there is definitely a need and a want for people to travel over here from Croton, from across the river, to come and enjoy the waterfront of Ossining.
With design document preparation already funded by a DEC grant, DRI funds will allow us to quickly implement the construction of a pier extension at Henry Gourdine Park. MTA ferry access to and from the village of Haverstraw will continue and strengthen the connection between these two Hudson River villages. A few hundred yards downriver, Sing Sing Correctional Facility has been a fixture in Ossining since 1825. Today, it is the most progressive institution in New York State corrections. Under the leadership of renowned museum consultant Brent D. Glass, the planned Sing Sing Prison Museum has so far garnered $5 million in grants and donations.
This project will transform Ossining's identity from a place associated with incarceration to a place associated with criminal justice reform. The museum, not by itself, but with its partners, will be a catalyst for changing that identity.
Housing justice also matters. At a DPW site on the Sing Sing Kill, 109 units of affordable housing will rise. Already underway with Wilder Balter Partners, the Station Plaza development will transform a village-owned brownfield site into a mixed-use, mixed-income development and complete the Sing Sing Kill Greenway. This project will secure affordability and inclusiveness in a neighborhood undergoing redevelopment, while its retail space will provide jobs. DRI funds will allow us to add public art and history exhibits along the Greenway and Linear Park,
creating a one-of-a-kind nature walk that connects the waterfront and the downtown.
There's this impetus to get things done in Ossining. They're ready-to-go projects that are really going to change the face and feel of the village. It's going to carry everyone with them. I think there are developments for all sorts of different people who are going to live here, work here, and visit here. It's really just so exciting. There's so much ready to go.
A stone's throw from our historic and singular Double Arch Bridge and Aqueduct Promenade, the Joseph G. Caputo Community Center provides recreational programming for children, teens, and adults at all income levels. In 2021, it became home to the first youth bureau to open in Westchester County in nearly 30 years. The village is in the process of transforming the Caputo Center into a state-of-the-art facility for innovative programming. DRI funds will help transform this dated building into dynamic, flexible, and life-changing spaces.
The goal of the youth bureau is to bring everyone together to support youth in the community. One of the things that the kids have brought up is a space where they can go and have different opportunities. A lot of kids are into technology. How do we engage them in that way? But again, you need a space that is transformable.
From Main Street to the waterfront to the community center, the Village of Ossining has carefully and strategically planned its downtown waterfront revitalization projects, all designed to create an even better tomorrow for the people who call our village home.
We hope you've enjoyed this visual tour of Ossining's remarkable and unique downtown waterfront district. Over the past few years, we've done the work, we've done the planning, and we've gotten our community's enthusiastic support. We have the leadership, the commitment, the strong village management, and the bench strength to get the job done. We are ready to go. In fact, we're already going. Thank you. The only problem with like Zoom calls is if we were live, there would be applause, because I think I had a minor role in this as far as in front of the camera. The most important thing for me is that this was a group effort. I've said this before. I'll say it again, over and over and over again. Teams working together always produce greater results than any single individual or two. It really is important to note that we took a chance. We knew that we had a story to tell, and we put our best foot forward, and we invested time, energy, a few dollars, minimal, because so much was done by volunteers. Karen has the names of everybody, and I think it is important to note that, and Dana White, in case you couldn't guess who did the voiceover from the hints that I gave. Dana and her husband David actually volunteered their time. Trustees get a stipend. We don't even honestly get minimum wage for the work that we do. And in addition to being on all the committees and going to events and all of that, did a lot of work behind the camera from start to finish. And of course the staff, and Karen will talk more about it. I was very moved by the video, because when you see, and we'll go through the names, but we had the police involved in taking, we had the drone, do a lot of pictures. We who have lived here a short and a long time, I think for many of us have felt very passionately about this village, but I'm not sure we were always able to tell our stories to others. The committee that looked at this, when we presented, a couple of us went to a presentation. This was actually the majority of the presentation. We did our presentation after we submitted all the paperwork. This was the presentation. And then I was asked a few questions. Grateful for Sandy Galoff, who happened to also be at the meeting. Grateful for Elijah Reichland Melnick for participating, our state representatives, because this is coming from the state. Grateful for all the people that were sitting in that room. We have no say in who votes, obviously, and we can't speak to them. It's all very secretive. It's all done, you know, in a very formulaic way. And you have to sort of be okay with all the formulas and the templates and be okay with the next 3 years of formulas and bureaucracy and government and all that. For those people that don't have a high tolerance for that, this is probably not the project for them. For those that have a tolerance for understanding that things have checks and balances, that grants are not a carte blanche credit card that you do as you wish with, that not everything will get done, but many things will, and that thousands of hours of job opportunities will be created no matter what is chosen as the next step and which projects will go forward. Hundreds of jobs, thousands of jobs, good for our economy, good for Ossining. More grants will come out of this. I say that not as a aspirational thing, as John Salzman said, but because we've learned from others that when you get this kind of grant, the way Peekskill did and New Rochelle did, more grants come your way to help you. This is like the kickstart, and then there's more. So we really looked at this as an investment. This board was all in it, all supportive, even if not all of us didn't participated physically, but the board is very supportive. We work as a team, and we think there'll be more. We're already working on some more that will help the village, so it's not our own tax dollars always being pulled on to do infrastructure change. So I'm super excited. I never look excited on Zoom. I've been told that. I'm like, I need to like have like a smiley face. I don't know what to do, but I was like jumping up and down when I first saw it. And when we thought that we won it, they wouldn't tell us until the press conference. And we did invite, and I personally called people, and we took a nice group shot because it is a team effort. It didn't become real till we got a call that a check was delivered to the community center. I am a big fan of our community center. I hope that we put a lot of energy and effort into enhancing our beautiful, in the middle of our village community center. Karen, I've set it up for you because you led so much of this. I already said how grateful I am to the board for all of the times that we work together to produce great results. This was one of the best results in my entire tenure. I think Manny called me up. He's been at this longer and said, we've tried before, we got close, but close doesn't count in grants. You either get them or you don't get them. So Manny was super excited because it's a huge change for our village. Karen, take it away, village manager.
Thank you, Mayor. It really has been a good few weeks for Ossining, and I'd be remiss to not recognize that the village has applied for this all of the 5 years that has been offered. So this is the culmination of years of work by past administrations, current administrations. With every application, we were able to debrief, build on that, make it better, and get to the point where we finally had the winning presentation. So again, there's such a range of people. This really was a labor of love, and it took a village for sure to get this done. We do have a lot of people to thank, and I would like to put to the record, beyond past administrations and past managers and staff who've worked on this over the years, our current Board of Trustees, our current staff, and numerous business owners and agencies and other community stakeholders participated in this. And it started with a 15-page application, and then that was distilled into a 10-minute video presentation. I'd like to personally thank the staff who worked on the written presentation, the written submission, and who performed community outreach. We did do community outreach during that period. It wasn't a long period, but we had a few weeks to reach out to the community and talk about the projects that we were putting forth. So I'd like to recognize Assistant Village Manager Manny Zahat, Director of Planning Jaime Martinez, Project Manager Jamie Hoffman, Corporation Counsel Stuart Kahan, Director of Public Works Paul Fraioli, And I would also like to acknowledge the assistance of Valium Nostra, Nelson Pope and Voorhees, who worked with us on a consulting basis. And she has had a lot of experience working with municipalities on DRI applications, and she was able to keep us focused and on task and made sure we hit all the marks. We also would like to thank the Downtown Development Fund Council, who reviewed our drafts. That's John Zeltzman, Casey Amoriello, and Catherine Carina, and their comments were helpful as well. The video, as the mayor said, was produced by an all-Ossining all-star team, starting with a screenplay written and narrated by Trustee Dana White, who's a journalist and former village historian as well. Videography and editing was done by Rob and Jackie Weir of Big House TV, an Ossining-based business, and as well as videography by David Tuckman and GoTV's Jesse Tuckman. We also had participation from urban planner and Ossining resident Jeff Shoemaker, and our area drone videography experts from the Ossining Police Department, Lieutenant Brendan Donahue and Officer Patrick McGovern. So again, all-star team putting this together, all Ossining team. And we look forward to working with the community to ensure that this funding is used not only to revitalize the downtown, but to benefit all of Ossining, because this will have an unending ripple effect throughout the community. The next steps involve, we're waiting for a meeting with the state. They will assign us a planning agency to work with us. There will be another intensive round of community engagement. We'll be establishing a community council committee of stakeholders who will steward this project forward and make sure that there's ample opportunity for community input. The board and trustee, the board of trustees will weigh in, and we will ultimately hone and define the specific projects that will be funded based on the projects that we put forth, and also the specific allocation of funding. And the state will be involved in determining that, and then we will be able to get started on going forward and implementing those projects. So we look forward to working with everybody again, as I said, and unfortunately, we did get a rather large check, figuratively and literally, but it is just a paper check. The way the money works is this will all be done based on the projects we define. There'll be money allocated to each project, and then that money will be drawn down as the work is done. So unfortunately, we do not have a $10 million check sitting in a bank anywhere. Dale was a little disappointed when she realized that, but we will be able to draw the money down as we complete the project. So again, thank you to everybody. It was it was a lot of work. It's going to be a lot of work to get this done, but we're going to have a lot of fun doing it, and it's going to bring a lot of good things to Ossining. So thank you all.
All right. I would say that should be your total update and announcement as a village manager, because, you know, after that, what is there to say? Look, I thank you for bringing it up. We have tried. This is not the first time. Not every municipality tries for this. It's a lot of work, and it has to be shovel-ready projects. So it's not like aspirational theoretical. We have spent this year really buttoning up some of our wish list items from being just wishes and ideas to actually moving forward on them, so that if we have to pay for it ourselves, what would it look like and all that? This now just gives us a huge, I think the governor, I do want to thank Governor Hochul, because this is actually a, publicly recorded. At the end of the day, it's the governor's decision. And not only am I grateful on behalf of the village, as I had said, that we were chosen, as I'm sure Haverstraw is grateful they were chosen for this part of New York State, but she was amazingly gracious and took the time out to speak to both mayors privately before to just find out what's going on and all that. I've just personally never had that experience, and I have met the previous governors, so I want to thank her. I mean, you know, it was a genuinely enjoyable piece. It's not just about the money. It's the fact that I feel like we've made it the way New Rochelle made it, and other much larger municipalities with much larger budgets and bigger staffs and all that. So I do want to thank the governor for actually finally selecting. It's at the end of the day the governor's choice. So I think that is based on recommendations, and there will be a lot more to come and public engagement. And people will ask why this project and not that. And a lot of that will flow actually from the state and how this gets run. And we are doing research about how other communities who have been fortunate enough to be chosen in the past, what their learnings are, what are the pros, what are the cons, what would they have done differently, what have they learned now that they're more embedded in it, and what's the actual effect. And so there'll be some homework there, and we're going to do that homework. So I think it's great. Did you have any other announcements, Karen?
Just very quickly. I do want to say it was a 10-minute video and we captured a lot, but it's just a sliver of everything Austining has to offer. And there was so much video we shot that we couldn't incorporate into our time limit, and very specific video that we had to do for this particular presentation. But we hope to use that footage, and we hope to include, you know, we now have the ability to create these things internally for and efficiently and effectively, and we hope to be able to tell our story visually more often and use our great resources from all over, including the police department aerial shots, which really were, I think, made the whole video. We also, I do want to mention that it was also a good week for Austining, because on Monday we were awarded a planning award from the
I was waiting for.
Westchester Municipal Planning Federation, and we received accommodation for our comprehensive plan and our form-based overlay district. So that was very exciting. And the town also won one for Dale Cemetery for historic preservation of the caretaker's cottage at Dale Cemetery, historic Dale Cemetery. So it was really a good week for Austining, and we can celebrate this week. Tomorrow night is the menorah lighting at Market Square at 5 o'clock, and on Friday night Santa will be visiting, and we will be lighting the tree at 6:30. Right. And so we have a lot of good things happening, and it's a great way to sort of wrap up a difficult year, or a series of difficult years, and start the new year and the holiday season off on a good note.
Thank you. I was letting you do the awards. It was in my mayor's message, also in the mayor's message, and I hope that you share those for those listening, or for those that will see this on video. We're going to be doing most likely somewhere around 4, I like to call them village halls. Most people call them town halls, but there's actually a town as well. So it's village hall meetings, forums. We sent out a survey in my mayor's message just to see, you know, what thoughts various members of the community might have, items that maybe we left off, items they want more information, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a survey. We'll collect the data, and we'll see what folks are interested in. There might be things we're just interested in bringing to the forefront. And so we'll have 4 of those. So input for community engagement would be appreciated. And I think we're ready to go on with the meeting, with the rest of the meeting, excuse me.
Martha, why don't we do the budget resolution at this point? Then we can do the public hearing, if that's okay with the mayor.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Fiscal year 2022 budget adoption, whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austining received from the town assessor for the year 2022 a combined total accessible assessment of real property and special franchise properties of $2,266,091,613. And whereas the Board of Trustees received the 2022 tentative budget on November 3rd, 2021, in accordance with Section C4-3 of the Village Charter, and has since amended same. And whereas the public hearing on the tentative budget was open and closed on November 17, 2021, and whereas the Board of Trustees, upon giving further consideration to requests and recommendations of all department heads, now therefore be resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austining does hereby adopt the budget of the Village of Austining for the fiscal year 2022, showing that they're to be levied and assessed upon the sum of taxable and special franchise properties of the Village of Austining, hereinfore the four listed, the sum of $23,756,114, to re-raise a real property tax levy, which sum is more completely set forth in the budget for the Village of Ossining. And be it further resolved that the tax rate rounded to the nearest penny and the same hereby is fixed at 10.4833 per $1,000 of assessed taxable valuation. And be further resolved, the adopted budget for calendar year 2022 shall include the appropriations and estimated revenues for the general fund, water fund, sewer fund, section 8 program fund, and debt service fund as modified by the Board of Trustees as follows. And be it further resolved that the Board of Trustees does hereby authorize the capital plan for the capital year 2022 as presented, see attached, subject to follow-up board resolutions to implement. Do I have a motion?
I'll move.
Need a second.
I'll second it. Nobody else wants to.
This is where I ask for comments. Am I on mute? No. This is where I ask for comments, and normally there's a whole big speech about the budget can only be passed by and budget-related items by 5 members. The trustees. This is the budget items are solely in the hands of the elected officials, the 5 elected officials, and no one else. And it sets the stage. All the budget conversations set the stage for the upcoming year. But I'm not going to do a big speech. I'm super excited. I wrote it in the mayor's message, and I'm too excited about the $10 million grant. And I feel like while this is a huge deal, I'll write something about it in my end of year commentary or in my January commentary about our goals for the upcoming year. But I just can't keep patting ourselves on the back. It's embarrassing now. So a lot of work went into budget. Are there any comments from the other trustees? Okay.
I'll say just one thing.
All right, didn't see you there.
You know, again, you know, like it was mentioned before, you know, it was not just working on a grant, not just working on applications for grants, not just a grant, but different grants that the staff has done. You know, we had said this at meetings back, and I have said the same thing. So I just want to thank the staff for all the great work that they have done. This is an outline, I want to say, of what next year looks like for, you know, the stuff that we're going to be working on. And when I said an outline is because the outline kind of shifted a little bit last week when we got the great news in a way of $10 million. That doesn't mean we're not going to be concentrating on the stuff that is part of the budget. I think is, unfortunately for staff, it's just going to be a lot more work to accomplish the stuff that we already have part of the budget. It's just one item that is additional to the budget stuff that we have. So I do want to thank the staff for all the hard work that they have done. So I thank you, and I'm going to thank you for all the hard work that you guys are going to be doing for next year for us and on behalf of the village. So thank you.
I can go. Excuse my voice. It is coming back. This is my second budget as a trustee that I sat through. My first one I sat through as an incoming trustee, and I sat in the back of the room, and Dale made sure I got every piece of paper. Dale is on point. It was a little confusing at first, but I'll tell you what, we got some staff, and Dale and Liz, you guys, great job. You know, you make it easier. It seems like every time. I feel like a pro now. It's only my second one, and I get a little lost, but it's great. The first one I sat through, I was like, oh my God, what am I getting into? But you made it. It couldn't be any better. So I thank you. I thank the staff, and we're in a good place. Thank you.
Anybody else? I'm looking. We're good? Okay. I also want to say that the budget this year, and I don't know if it's, Dale will tell me if it's the 4th year in a row. While the village is not the biggest part of the pie in the taxes that we all pay, and I mean all of us, we are having a 0% rate increase. I think it's the 5th year in a row. because I look back and that's what I figured out. Dale is telling me I'm right about that. That's a big deal. It's a really big deal to have increasing costs and increased services and increased population and increase everything, and do more and still come into it at 0%. And our auditors continuously applaud us what we do. So I think it's great. And it is complicated. The loose leaf binders used to be like 4 inches thick. It's a lot of stuff. Bob is right on one hand. On the other hand, we look at all the line items. We look at all the salaries. We look at all the expenses. There's a lot of work. And yes, it was actually done on a parallel path to when grants were being done and everyday work was being done. You know, the garbage and the sewage and the water and Ida and pandemic and everything else. So it does feel good to have this budget. So much appreciated. And it does drive like a GPS. It's going to drive what we work on and what we focus on. And there's a lot in there. And it's all public. And anybody that wants to can look at it at any time. It will be posted as an approved budget. When we approve it, right now it's a proposed budget. Are we ready to vote? I think so. Martha?
Those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
I'm going to do a virtual applause. Thank you, Dale. You should be smiling. And Liz. Go ahead, Martha.
Okay, public hearing in the matter of proposed local law 13 of 2021, a local law amending Chapter 8 Civilian Police Complaint Review Board of the Village of Austin Code. Is there anybody here from the public who would like to address the board for the public hearing? Just please remember that you get 1 chance of speaking and it's for 4-minute intervals, and Jamie will be keeping the time. Thank you. And please raise your virtual hand if you would like to comment.
Yes, and I will call on you. And would anyone like to speak? If you want to raise your hand. Mayor, do you want to do your tap dance? Oh, okay, we have Jermaine Smith.
No, I don't need to do tap dance. I'm seeing a hand up. Great.
Got it, no
Hello,
problem.
Jermaine. Are you bringing Jermaine over?
I am, yes.
Great.
I am bringing you over, Jermaine. If you can unmute and then turn.
Hello, everyone. I was just curious, how were you? I hope everyone. First of all, congratulations on the grant to everyone who participated and worked everything. I'm excited about that as well, and hopefully be interested to see the projects moving forward. Looking forward to the community center as well as some of the other stuff. Hopefully, a cultural center in downtown Austin will be great. As for the CPCRB local law, I was curious if any changes were made. The public hearing was last week, and then we pushed it to again this week, and I didn't see any changes or anything submitted. I didn't see anything if it was submitted. I apologize if I missed it. If there was any changes to some of the stuff that was brought up, referring to as far as the CPCRB not having any really teeth in the game, not really being able to partake in investigations. They can't interview witnesses, not being able to see any of the content from police if they do interview witnesses. And I'm not talking about like body cam footage from arrests or anything like that. I'm talking about particularly if a complainant files a complaint, if I, as Jermaine Smith, file a complaint against a police department, that thing goes to the police department to investigate, and the interviews taking place by the police. The police review board, CPCRB, they don't partake in that part of the review. So I'm just curious as far as if anything was changed regarding that. And a couple of things that we brought up last week, and I know this is not a Q&A, this is not the Village Hall, but if there was changes or anything, modifications made to the local law, does that have to be put forward to the citizens again before there can be a vote or anything moving this law forward? So I was just curious that aspect of it. I really would be interested in having a really deep conversation about making the CPCRB a really separate entity from the police department and allowing them to have a little bit more stake in being able to at least talk to witnesses so they can do some kind of evaluation of gauging their, I guess, their sincerity in that complaint or truth in that complaint for their own, instead of having to rely on a police report to do so. And not to say that they have to do like the full investigation on their own or anything like that, but if they can have a little bit more tangible access to the person or people filing complaints against the police department, I think that'll go a long way into going what this body was put together for, to try to instill trust in the process and try to add some transparency to that process. And I think the follow-up to that also is with the idea of having the board members trained. So I'm hoping that like there's gonna be some conversations around some of that, and I'm looking forward to seeing what we transition to with this local law. Thank you.
Okay, so hello, hi. Sort of a lot there, and we do look at the recording afterward. We're gonna hear a commentary on it. I'll have Stuart at the end sort of talk about the different pieces of legislation, and the trustees, I think at least one also has some questions. So it's not an agreement or disagreement, because Jermaine, you threw in a whole bunch of stuff in there between the CPRB and rethinking. It is all different things. So we will have to look at that list that you put together verbally and then answer it. And we didn't push this meeting. So a public hearing was opened, and because there were still some questions and thoughts, Trustee Casada, Deputy Mayor Casada, asked that we extend. And some public hearings last for weeks, some last for minutes. It depends on how long we think it makes sense to gather as much information as we can. And sometimes we wait till the end to make changes, and sometimes we do it as we go along. It's not necessarily an iterative process. It's a literally to hear what the public has to say is the purpose, so that we can then go back and think about the commentary and how we want to incorporate it into a piece of legislation, whether the legislation needs to be edited, changed, or left as it was originally designed. So we'll look into that, and I'm sure Stuart, who's Corporation Counsel, is taking notes, so that if there are things that we can clarify, we will. Is there another hand up?
Yes, there is. Leah Nelson, I'm going to bring you over. If you can turn on your camera and unmute. Thank you. So you're coming. There you are. There you are.
Okay. Sean?
Hi. I'm Leah Nelson, Putnam Valley resident, member of local House of Worship. I just want to urge everyone to remember why Executive Order 203 was mandated and why the Civilian Police Complaint Review Board was formed. It's to improve the relationship and trust between African Americans and the police, who have historically engaged in racist policing practices. The more I read the rules of engagement that the CPCRB is outlined in Local Law 13/2021, the more it seems like this board is on trial than the perpetrator of the complaint. I'm seeing they have to be fingerprinted. They need an incredible amount of courses. They're not allowed to save their notes. They're not allowed to interview witnesses or the complainant. And to me, it just seems like you're trying to protect the police. And that's not what this board is for. At the last meeting, in response to the complaint about citing the penal code in the complaint letter, Trustee Lopez said that he didn't see why that the penal code would seem intimidating. And I think that's kind of insensitive or maybe disingenuous. Black people in particular have good reason to be afraid of the police and police retaliation and the racist justice system that is in this country. So I would just urge you, the police have plenty of protections. They have qualified immunity. They have an incredibly strong union that the CPCRB will never be able to reprimand or cause the police any problem. Just let a fair investigation happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Where in Putnam County are you from?
Putnam Valley.
Putnam Valley. What does the police reform look like up there? What are they doing up there?
I'm sorry, I'll put her back in. I apologize.
That's okay.
All right. Oh. All right, Leah, you're coming back over. My apologies.
Oh, it's a different picture than how she looks.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
I need a haircut.
You look better live, I have to be honest.
Oh,
what's Putnam Valley doing? What's a CPRB look like up there?
Well, first of all, my town doesn't have its own police department.
Okay, thank you. And what's the police reform look like up there?
It doesn't look very good.
Okay.
At all.
So here's the thing. The CPRB. No.
We don't have African American.
The CPRB and 203 are two different things that you're conflating. We have always had in this community a CPRB. It's actually, to my knowledge, one of the only ones. And out of the plan that we are not going to relitigate in this conversation, out of the plan came improvements to the CPRB. Local Law 13, as was said last week, has some good things to it, and it has some things that we need to revisit, and that's actually what we're doing. The Executive Order 203 and CPRB are not one and the same. One is a subset of the other.
I know that.
And so I just want to make that clear. If somebody happens to be listening just to this has been going for months. And there is something to be said about a community that takes a step forward before everybody else did. You may not love the way it looks, but took a step before anybody else to put something together, and now is trying to improve it. So I do get a little bit, and then people know this about me, so don't take it personally. I do take some offense when we try to do things well and correct and are trying our best, and we all live here. Every member of the deciding factor here on this Board of Trustees, not the CPRB, them too, but on this board, lives in this community and does its best for this community. And when we get told by members outside this community about how things should be done when in their own community, so little is being done, in my opinion, it sometimes feels unfair that the test that we have to somehow pass is higher than other people. So as mayor, you could appreciate that I want to be very clear that we have had this in place, that we have looked at it, that we continue to look at it seriously, passionately, and with thoughtfulness, even if not everyone agrees with every single line item. So I do sometimes, I do get berated sometimes for not being passionate, emotional, but I do get about this because I really take great pride in the fact that we continue to strive to get better, even if some people measure us in their own communities where things aren't being done, they come here and tell us in our community everything that we're doing wrong. Because a lot of what you said is about things that I think are really taken out of context, respectfully. So I'm not just going to leave that alone, because I don't answer questions, and I'm going to let the attorney talk about the law and the legislation when we get all of the rest of the input.
I'm speaking on behalf of your African American community. I don't have an African American community up here.
Okay. Thank you. Jamie, is there somebody else?
I am waiting for someone to raise their hand. Jennifer Cabrera, I'm going to bring you over as panelist. If you could please unmute and turn on your camera. Thank you.
Hi, I'm actually going to leave my camera off. I'm not really camera ready at this point. I just want to say, you know,
we do ask Jennifer that people tell us where they're from. So just to be clear that you're from Ossining.
Yes, I live in Ossining. I've lived here for about 5 years.
Right.
And I'm chair of the CPCRB. I'm part of the working committee.
Right.
You know, this entire process I find very exhausting. When I am at these meetings that happen, you know, starting at 7:30, and I realize it's got to happen at some point when people can attend, it means that I'm missing bedtime with my son. It means that I am missing quality time with him for the few hours that he's home after we have worked for a full day, myself and my husband. I want to see this village do better by him, because he is Black, he is Latino, and he is visibly so. And when he is racially profiled, which I know that he will be when he becomes a young man, I don't want to see that happen in Ossining. I know it will happen. It is inevitable, but it doesn't have to happen here. And one of the best tools that I think we have is the CPCRB, if it is done the right way. When we do things like put intimidating language on the form to discourage people from making complaints, that weakens the CPCRB and it weakens the police-community relationship. When we seek to strip the CPCRB of its independence, which it doesn't have that much. Let's be honest, it doesn't have that much. We are weakening its ability to do its job. And we are weakening the relationship between the OPD and the community. And I realize that there are a lot of factors that you all are taking into account here. But I don't like hearing, you know, we're doing better than other communities, so we don't have to try our best here, which is what I feel like I hear every time somebody has a criticism about the way this is being handled or about the changes that are being made. We are all part of this community, even if we don't live here. If we just come here once a week for, you know, for church, like Leah does. And honestly, she's in the community more than just once a week for church because she's part of local groups as well. I want to see this community do its best because it's going to affect my son, it's going to affect his friends, and it's going to affect my neighbors. So you know, I've sent over my specific comments about the CPCRB, but I just want to make very clear that I'm not doing this because for you know, it's not that I hate the police. I actually, when we were watching the video and afterwards, Manager Totori was mentioning Pat McGovern and Brendan Donahue having done the drone footage. Those are two police officers that I know from the CPCRB. And I'm so proud that they were part of that. They did a great job on that drone footage. You know, I saw when we had the giant mask on Village Hall, I saw Brendan's name as the photographer there. That made me happy for Brendan, that we have him on our police force. But at the same time, we can say we have a great police department, but not everybody trusts it. And that is because of things that have happened here in Ossining. That is about because of things that have happened outside of Ossining. It's about things that have happened just in the United States in general. We can't control where all the distrust comes from, but what we can control is what we do here. And what I want to see from my elected officials is an understanding of that value and of the value of having an independent, as much as it can be, oversight body. And what we have right now is the CPCRB. Let's do the best job that we can in strengthening that body so that people will trust their police department, and parents of young men of color can sleep well at night, at least knowing that their kids are going to get a fair shake in their own backyards. That's everything I have to say.
Thank you. I heard what, I heard the time, but I think that Jennifer's chair and stuff has a lot to say. So I appreciate the input. I appreciate also the differentiation between all the police departments and what is happening or might happen in our backyard. All politics is local. It's very personal to people. And I think that's very clear. Are there any other hands? I'm going to turn it over to the trustees in a minute, but I just want to make sure we get the hands.
For now, there isn't anyone. Is there?
Well, then if we move from that, just so the public knows, this moves out of the public and goes to the trustees. We're not going to go back and forth. So if there's something you would like to add, that would be great. I'm going to give it another minute. Okay. Looking, does anybody, any of the trustees have any comments? Okay, Bob, anybody else?
I do. Thank you, Mayor. So I want to thank folks for coming out to speak about this important issue. I'll touch on some of the points that folks have made. So Jermaine, one of the questions that you asked was what changes have been made of all the suggestions that have been made by members of the public, what changes have we adopted? And I just want to underscore the point that the mayor made, which is we haven't made any at this point. We're receiving all of the feedback, then we discuss, we implement the changes that make sense, we move forward from there. But it isn't a process where we get feedback, we make changes, we put it back out, we then repeat that process. So it's not iterative, as the mayor said. So I just want to underscore that point because I think it's important for people to understand the process. I also appreciate the robust, substantive email that you sent us that has a lot of your thoughts. I sent you a response back. I didn't respond point by point, but we've discussed many of the points that you brought up in your email in the past. And I think that the headline that I want to give is that, and this will touch on the point that Leah made as well, which is there are parts of these changes where my belief is that reasonable people can disagree, that there isn't one objectively correct answer, one definite way to do it, because there are different things to consider. And one example of that is the language that goes in to the form. Should it be more general language, or should it be language from the penal code? What we're suggesting in local law 13 is having penal code language. There's a rationale behind that. There's an argument against that. I received that argument. And then we will move forward in a way that we as a collective feel makes the most sense. But I want to validate the fact that there are legitimate arguments against some of the suggested changes, and we should hash it out. And so I understand what those arguments are, and I find some of them compelling. I find others less so, and that's kind of what it is. But I want to definitely make that point. To Jennifer, a couple of things. So first, I just wanted to say how lucky we are as a community to have somebody like Jennifer that cares as much as you do about our community, that you are involved as you are. I know that you know that I get what you're saying in terms of having to make the choice to sacrifice time with your family in order to serve the community. That's a very real thing. How many times have you heard my kids on calls? A million. And, you know, it's a very real thing. And so on behalf of the board and of the entire village, I thank you for the service that you have and continue to provide the village through the CPCRB. That is, it's above and beyond what goes on in a lot of places. And we are lucky to have somebody like you and the rest of the folks that are on the CPCRB as well. I think, and now this is a place where we're going to get into particularly tricky territory. And so I will make the point very, very bright that I am speaking solely for myself. Okay. I'm not speaking on behalf of the board. This is the opinion of Omar Lopez by himself. Okay. I personally find it very difficult when I hear the kind of commentary that is made around race and policing, because I'm someone that, when I came into this work of being a village trustee, decided I want to find a few issues that I really care about and learn about as much about them as I can. Affordable housing is one. And law enforcement is another. The more that I learn about these topics, the more that I see that they are nuanced, detailed, complicated, often conflicting kinds of topics. That's what makes them interesting. That's what makes them rich. And as a result, it's hard to hear what feels like arguments that don't take into account a lot of the nuance that is involved into a lot of this work. So I'll give a very specific example. I am someone who is Black and Latino and lives in this community. I don't represent all Black people. Black people are not a monolith. So it's hard for me to say Black people feel this way about whatever. How do I know how all Black people in the world or in Ossining feel about anything? Because they feel different ways, because Black people are not a monolith. And when I walk around this community, again, I am Latino. I speak Spanish fluently. And yet, when I walk into businesses, particularly Spanish language dominant businesses, they speak to me in English, despite the fact that maybe the customer ahead of me or behind me that maybe presents as more traditionally, phenotypically Latino, they'll speak to them in Spanish initially. They'll speak to me in English. They'll be like, oh, this is a Black dude, so I'll speak to him in English. Okay. To me, the reason that I'm bringing that up is because my experience walking around this community is one where I'm carrying all these identities with me. And depending on how people perceive those identities, I get treated different ways. With that being said, the complicated part about talking about race and policing in this community is that it is a very small village. And the kind of profiling that exists in large communities, cities, It looks a little bit different. Not to say that there's no profiling here in Ossining, but it looks different in a place like Ossining because you run into the same people over and over again. And if you were to ask police officers, which I have, with the mayor in the room, or groups of Black men, as I have with the mayor in the room, they'll tell you that the engagement that many members of the community have with the police, again, is not monolithic. It's not just a feeling of you are Black, and as a result, I'm profiling you, and we're going into like these kinds of issues. Oftentimes, it's one where people are being engaged. And in fact, what we hear most often is from the community, hey, like the police are like letting me go. Like I got stopped and I was speeding and they let me go. Okay. How do you square that with the national perception that exists around law enforcement when you have all of these kinds of really high profile issues that come up? It's complicated because that doesn't invalidate a George Floyd. But then again, what does that mean in terms of the day-to-day experience of a Black person in Ossining? I can only speak for myself, but it's very, very hard to say, we're going to make changes to the CPCRB. And as a result, the experience of Black people, Latino people, whatever in Ossining as a result is going to be different. You know, the reality is, I challenge anybody to do this. Stop 10 people on the street and ask them about the Ossining CPCRB. I would be highly skeptical that anybody, out of those 10, maybe 2 have heard of it. You know, to me, it's not the principal thing that people think about when they think about policing. They think about police. They think about the uniform. They think about, like, when you're a little kid, you learn about police and the work that the police do to engage the community. Like that is day to day. That is what really makes a difference in terms of their perception of the police. That doesn't minimize the work we're doing with the CPCRB. It's incredibly important work. And it's also not the same as if we decide to leave the language around the penal code in the form, it means that the relationship that Black people are going to have with the police is going to be notably worse. Again, only my opinion. In conclusion, I genuinely appreciate the amount of energy that has gone into this and the kind of frustration that people may feel when they put in time and energy and effort into long emails, showing up to meetings at 8, 9 o'clock at night, volunteering on boards, doing all kinds of stuff, and feeling like like all of these ideas are going into a black hole. Like people are not taking what you're saying and like actually doing something with it. I understand how frustrating that may feel. And as part of a democracy and as part of a group of elected officials, I'm here, again, to always speak for myself, to represent the totality of a community and many, many different interests and perspectives. And so I receive a lot of the thoughts that we hear, use my own judgment, and then make a decision that, with my understanding of the pros and cons of what we're doing, is going to have the maximal positive effect on the community. And that's really all I have to say.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that has anything else to add?
Mayor, if I may, I'm not sure if anybody else, but Dana, do you want to go? I don't mind. So you unmuted yourself. That's
You
why.
He's asking that because you unmuted yourself, so he thought you wanted to say something.
No, I would just like to thank everyone for their passion, their firm belief that we can always do better, because we can always do better. Everybody can always do better in everything, and all we can do is try. Language matters a lot. The words one uses matters a lot. I think that if there are ways to use language to make, whether it's on a form or whatever, to make something more accessible to people, I'm all for that. To me, that seems like a no-brainer. And it's true that the group that would go on to become the CPCRB, it evolved over the 30 years, did come out of a tragic situation that occurred in the 1992, I believe. So we have had these experiences here. As a white person who's had her own difficulties, based not on, based on a bunch of different things, I don't think there's any doubt, and I'm not speaking about Ossining, but I'm speaking about society at large. We have a big problem. Whatever we can do here to make sure those problems never happen again here, as they did at one time, we should do. But I know that there are also boundaries. I also know I know very little about what the CPCRB does because I'm not allowed to know. That's the thing, very secretive. And it's hard for me as somebody who depends on research and questions and getting the facts for myself to actually weigh in on a lot of these finer points because I simply do not have the information for myself. But I just would like to reiterate that I think Jennifer, I think Jermaine, I think Leah, I think Omar, I think the mayor, I think everybody who has taken this seriously and continues to. And we will just keep trying to do better. So thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Manny?
Thank you, Mayor. So, it was, I don't want to, I want to say thank you, Omar, for the stuff that you said. It's very true. I still have an accent, and I never want to lose my accent. That's something that I'm proud of. And I still struggle with when I speak my second language, which is English. So I've been struggling with this since I was 15, since when I came to this country. That being said, I get the opposite effect, Omar. When I go to Spanish business, they speak to me in Spanish, and I'm like, wait a minute, I want you to speak in English. But hey, it is what it is, sure. I do have a question, though, and this goes to the board and mainly to Omar. That was one, couple of the few points that you brought up is some of the items that were that raised for the past week and the week before in the comments and the emails that you mentioned that we all have seen that you wanted to clarify. So that's something, and I guess this goes to the board, is that do we want to have additional time to discuss these items to see if we want to make the modifications that were brought up on here, and what does that look like? Because obviously, and under this portion of our meeting, we cannot have a work session. We need to have a deeper discussions, go through all the items, make sure that it's, like Omar mentioned, that some of them he thought were valid points, and I'm going to agree with that. Some of them, they were very valid that I'd be interested to have a deeper discussions with among ourselves. So is that, please correct me if I'm wrong or I'm mistaken, is that what you were referring to, Omar, that you wanted to have a deeper discussion in a work session setting?
Well, I defer to Stuart actually in terms of process, but I think my larger point was that with any of these changes that have been suggested by the public, we haven't had conversation as a board in saying, hey, somebody made this recommendation. So you take actually, like Dana just said, that she agrees around the suggestion in changing the language in the form. We haven't had the conversation of Dana saying, I think that we should change the language, and then some number of us saying, I agree, and then we go ahead and kind of make that change. But this is where I would tag in Stuart to make sure that all the details are correct in terms of what the process would look like in terms of having that conversation and then implementing it in a way that follows the right protocol.
If the board is desired, I'll start it this way.
I'm sorry for 1 second. Manny, you're the one that asked that we continue with the public hearing. So I think some of this is to see if we want to continue the public hearing for more input or if we want to close it. And Stuart, this might be a point in time, I think, Manny, if you're done, if you want to clarify some points or some things that were made. I also wanted to bring up that we did talk about around this time about not just the CPRB, but to talk about the advisory committee that is being set up. And I wanted to also present that to the board. And Stuart, if you could help me figure out when on the agenda I can do that, that'd be great. So it's, Manny, are you done? And returning?
Thank you, Manny. No, and correct. Yeah, I'm done. I was the one who asked for a little more time, you know, just to clarify, just to give the public that opportunity to kind of go back. But yes, Stuart, and correct me if I'm wrong, Stuart, and I'm not going to speak on behalf of you, but my recollection is if we do want to make modifications to the existing, the proposed law right now, we'll have to go back from the beginning. So we have to do the public engagement again. We have to do that portion of sort of start from the beginning, just more like a new proposed law in a way.
There's a lot to unpack, so let me do it rather slowly, if I might. The law that is before the board tonight is the same law that was before the board at the last public hearing. As I indicated at the last meeting, if you make changes, you start your process again. You have to have a new public hearing and begin again. So there are, what was presented back in November is now the same local law tonight. It's a continuation of a public hearing. It is not a new public hearing. It is a continuation. So if the board believes that there need to be changes made, they would obviously have to discuss it and ultimately let me know, because to be blunt, I can only go by what's there. And what is before the board now is proposed local law 13 of 2021. That is the October revision. That is what is before the board. So I think that answers one of Mr. Smith's questions, is that it is not this, there have been no changes made since the public hearing. It is what was at the public hearing, or the initial public hearing. Let me answer that. Questions have been asked about the language appearing at the end of the form. Let me make 2 points with regard to that. The section of the penal law that is being quoted says the following: a person is guilty of making a punishable false written statement when he knowingly makes a false statement which he does not believe to be true in a written instrument bearing a legally authorized form notice to the effect that the false statements made therein are punishable. This is my own belief. It is obviously, this is what the board has to decide, is that the language is necessary. I don't believe anyone has indicated that there has been a diminution in the number of complaints that have been made as a result of having language that basically indicates what the penal law section is. More importantly, under the recently enacted revisions to the executive law, creating the Law Enforcement Misconduct Investigative Office, known as LEMIO, any complaint, whether substantiated or not, counts as a complaint which may ultimately have to be reported to the state. I think it needs to be kept in mind that the only complaints that would be problematic for an individual is if the individual made a complaint and they knew in fact that what they were writing down was false. Simply put, if they were making an objectively false statement. To make a person aware that that is an issue, I think is important, particularly when that complaint can result in having that officer reported to the state. as part of the requirements under the Law Enforcement and Conduct Investigative Office under Section 75A of the Executive Law. So again, that's something for this board to consider as to whether or not it should or should not be there. With regard to the ability to interview witnesses, I should point out that does not appear in the plan that was adopted by the Board of Trustees. That is not a recommendation that is in the plan that is there. Nor is there anything with regard to having more access to the folks who file the complaints. That is not in the plan. Ms. Nelson indicated that it appears to be very onerous with regard to members of the board. The training requirements, which were actually changed as a result in the plan and in the proposed local law, there was never a suggestion that there should not be training for board members on the CPCRB. The request was that it not be that so much had to be done before any member could even hear a case. So that has now been changed, that I believe there are 6 main topics which have to be considered or dealt with by a member before he or she can actually hear a case. And then there are other topics which will be dealt with over time. And one of the thoughts is that could be done during training sessions when the board is not necessarily hearing a complaint. So that's that. The fingerprinting, there is a requirement that the folks not have criminal records. One of the ways to check that out is frankly through fingerprinting. And that's a requirement with regard to the CPCRB. So, that's where that is. I should also point out that I know that Ms. Nelson, I think, made a comment to the effect that, the CPCRB would not, really, hurt the police or hinder the police, but the CPCRB could ultimately make a recommendation which could go to this board as a board of police commissioners for disciplinary action against an officer. Disciplinary action could in fact involve termination of the officer. So it does have an impact there. But again, that's that's one of the issues. I know that earlier today, Trustee White had raised the question about that the local law changes from monthly meetings to that the meetings would be called at the request of the chair. And one of the things I noted in my response to Trustee White and copied to the other board members is that the idea of monthly meetings actually doesn't appear for most committees. It does not appear for our land use boards. And the idea is that in this case, the chair can call a meeting generally on 10 days notice, but if there is an emergency situation, can call it on less than 10 days notice. And so if there is something that needs to be discussed promptly, it can be discussed. But if there is nothing before the board, be it even a training or anything, they don't have to have a meeting. They don't have to show up to basically adjourn just so that they have said that they have met monthly. Planning and zoning boards, I should just point out, don't have that requirement. They do not have a 30-day that they must meet every month. They do because of the nature of what they do, but frankly, there are months where they don't meet. They don't meet during the summer in August, and they will not meet if there's nothing on the agenda. But I guess showing how busy things are, that has not happened with either of those boards in a bit of time. But and I think so I think that those got to 2 of the questions or 2 of the issues that were raised by Trustee White, and those I think were the comments with regard tonight in terms of what the CPCRB can do. The changes that are in effect in the in proposed local law 13 pretty much mark what the recommendations from the working committee and in the plan that was adopted by the board are. There are a few changes I acknowledge, but in terms of the investigative ability, training ability, who can be on the board, who has a voting ability on the board, all those are in fact adopted or are in the proposed local law subject to adoption. But if this board determines that it wants to make additional changes, I would request 2 things. One is we should close this public hearing if in fact that's necessary. And if it is determined that there are changes to be made, those can be discussed, directed to me. we can circulate another draft, and it can be discussed at a work session, most likely in 2022. But it's up to the board. If the board closes the public hearing and just wants to proceed to a vote on the local law next week, it can do that if it would rather, or in 2 weeks, or if it wants to instead have a further discussion at a work session. It's whatever the board's pleasure is. But I think at this point, unless the board has other reasons, I think the public hearing itself with regard to 13/2021 can be closed.
Okay, thank you, Stuart. I want to make a suggestion. Thank you again, Stuart, because you, I think, answered and clarified some of the questions. So here's a suggestion I'm going to make. To Stuart's point, if we keep the public hearing open, we're not going to be able to move forward in some way. We'll hear more opinions, yes, but we tend to get the same folks on, and I feel like they can also email us. They all know how to reach us, so it can be done by email. My thought is that we close the public hearing. There are parts in this piece of legislation that nobody disagreed with. They're good pieces of this legislation that can be pulled out, that we know are good. They're what everybody more or less agrees, and put that together. And the pieces that need some more attention, we need to address them. So we are going to have to sort of revisit that. It's pros and cons, because for the most part, and this has been said publicly by many of the folks on this call and the trustees, there's a lot of good stuff that's in there, and that's also being held up. So my suggestion is we close the public hearing tonight on this. We revisit some of the parts that people have opinions on, and their opinions. We may still come back to exactly where we are after the board discusses it and digest and discuss, or we may make some changes and bring that back in. And yes, it will be an extra public hearing. So Stuart, that would be like, there was a lot of good pieces there that's also being held up. So I don't know if it could be done into local law 1322 and or 1-22 or whatever, because I think you're gonna have to rename it. But it feels like it doesn't stop anything from happening if we take more time to look at the emails and unpack all of that and see where we land. I hope I'm making some sense. Or is that where most of the board is on, or does the board want to close it and vote tonight on what we're looking at, the current law? What are we thinking? Because Stuart needs direction. We have to leave here with clear direction here.
If we close the public hearing,
go ahead, Bob.
That doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to a vote next week. Correct, Stuart?
That is correct. All you're doing is you're closing the public hearing.
We're just closing the public.
You would be in 2 weeks, but you are correct. It does not compel you to vote on it in 2 weeks. That is correct.
So my feeling is we close the public hearing and we entertain talking about what we need to talk about, if we need to make changes or not.
And bring that to Stuart. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. And is there a time, is there a trigger for a time when we do have to vote? Is there like any trigger? We don't do this very often, so. Usually by the time we get to this, we have a sense of a majority. But I somehow felt at one point a couple of years ago, there was some sort of a trigger that happens at this point that does determine.
I'll look that up right now as I am going through my handy dandy.
Okay.
He's looking through his trigger book.
That's it, the trigger book.
The fact that you actually know the name for that is impressive.
Yeah. The answer is no. I mean, the public hearing, the law just talks about when the public hearing has to be noticed. But in terms of, your adoption, I mean, the general practice has been it's usually adopted at the next meeting. But if in fact the board, after thinking about this, says, I'd like to change this, I change that, what would happen is changes would be made. There would then be a notice for a new public hearing. This local law would presumably then become, let's say, 1 of 2022 or whatever. And then it would go public hearing process, and then the board could do what it needs to do. So that's all it does. You're not required to vote within X number of days to
Okay.
close of a public hearing.
Answers the question. All righty, folks, are we leaning to, and by the way, no guarantee that we're going to change. We might have a discussion and come back and say, like, after thinking about it, this is how we want to move forward and move this piece of it forward. It's one element of many. So vote to close this public hearing. Do I have, well, Martha's supposed to do this. Sorry, Martha.
Sorry to interrupt you, Mayor. Do we want to read what's in the chat box into the record?
I've already gone through this, that chat box, this is a public hearing. So no, we can't do these. This is, we don't get into the chat box. I think actually Stuart told us once you can put it into the, we're supposed to put it into the minutes if it's in the chat box.
That would be correct, Mayor. Yes,
Okay.
Jamie, I apologize for the incorrect information. My mistake. But Martha, that can go into the minutes, whatever in our.
And if people have more questions, they should email the VOT.
Right.
I just got a quick question. Jamie, is there a way for me to save the messages once the meeting ends, or how should we?
I have it. I'll send it to you.
Okay, thank you, Jamie.
You can do it, yeah.
Okay.
I make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Do I have a second?
I will second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, so this part is closed. Stuart, you want to take it from here and then we'll move on?
Right. I mean, we'll then have to, at that point, it'll be a matter of determining, when the board wants to have a discussion on this. We have a pretty busy agenda next week.
It won't happen until 2022.
That's fine.
It won't happen in the first meeting of 2022 because that's when all the reorganizations occur, and that meeting goes on for a very long time.
Okay, so we're probably looking sometime at least in January for to bring this back.
Right.
Understood.
Right, and we'll figure out how we want to do it. Maybe we make it into two pieces of legislation, taking out the things we agree on, making changes or not. That's the point of a conversation. So that's fine. It just delays it, moves it into January. The first meeting is the reorg. It will go, they usually go on a very long time. So I don't see that as the right time to make people sit around waiting for the conversation. Okay. I also wanted to know, one of the other elements out of the plan was the formation of a committee, which I wanted to present to the board. It's 9:23 and we have other things on the agenda. Do you recommend I do that
the only
now,
thing
or?
Actually, the only thing, Mayor, left on the agenda are, if I got it right, Martha, it's organization announcements and visitor recognition. So if you want to get through those two, we can then put what you have as new business and then basically
let's do
go
it that
from
way.
there. So Martha, we'll start with organizational announcements.
Okay. Is there anybody here who would like to make an organizational announcement? If so, please raise your virtual hand.
Or at least on my end, you are cut off a little bit. The idea is if you're part of an organization and you'd like the public or the trustees to know, so oftentimes about an event or something that goes on that you'd like people to know, this is the time to let the public know or to let us know.
There's no hands up, Martha.
Yeah. Okay. Going on then, is there anybody here from the public would like to address the board on issues not relating to the agenda, but of relevance to the common good of the village? If so, please raise your virtual hand. Okay, seeing no one. Nobody? Okay, good. Then we're moving on to new business of the board. We already did the resolution, so
This would be you want to present now.
Yeah, no, I got it. I was just waiting.
Okay.
So let me start this way because I went back and looked on the website. Thank you, Jamie. I assume it was you on 11/26 or thereabouts, or 11/18. I'm sorry. Updated. We have a project list that came out of the police reform plan that was approved and sent to the governor's office, and we had committed last time we all met that it will be updated monthly, and there's an actual update date so people can see when it was updated. And
Jamie, I'm not going to go through this. I mean, there's a couple of things that need to be edited, and it's no big deal, but thank you for doing it, because the public can now go on the police reform and look at things that have been updated, what's in progress, what's not. Local Law 13 actually is up there, and we'll have to go back and see if we need to edit that. So that's one thing I wanted to let people know, that that is getting updated on a regular basis, and you can see all of the progress made in implementing the plan, much of which was asked of the police to do. Some of it, the board just made a decision, lots of conversation about ICE. That was a big, big part of the work plan. We already agreed to that. That's already, it's going to have the word done on there. So I'm just giving you different levels. As you scroll down, you'll see the advisory committee or the implementation committee is one of them. And I have spent since, I don't know, probably April, maybe May, having conversation with people on the working committee. I wanted to have one-on-one conversations. I wanted to get a better understanding of what worked and what didn't. At the end of all that, we are ready to move forward with we have about a dozen committees. Some are more engaged than others. Trustee White and I had a couple of conversations recently about engagement on different committees and what that means and what we do. Do you just keep adding committees? Do you take some committees down if there's not much activity in it, et cetera, et cetera? And it just talks about really the value and the added value to the board of volunteer committees, and that there's similarities amongst them, and we do try to get consistency, but there's also differences because they're each designed for different purposes, and therefore they follow different routes. So, and come to life at different points in time, more or less active. So we haven't added a committee this year, to my knowledge. We re-engineered 4 or 5 committees in the last 2 or 3 years in a really big and significant way. I mean, totally redone. Landlord tenant, totally redone. All new. That took about 1.5 years because there's lots of conversation back and forth. The Board of Ethics was redone and re-engineered, et cetera, et cetera. So this one is the Police Advisory Committee, and Trustee Lopez and I have been working on it with input from trustees and staff, et cetera. And I actually met with, or called and reached out to the working committee. At the end of some of those conversations, the conclusion we drew was that we would appoint to the advisory committee any member of the working committee that wanted to be appointed. And I have those names to submit. And Stuart, I don't know if this is the time I do it or I do it in a different session. We haven't done this in so long, I don't even remember the process, to be honest with you.
Well, Mayor, I think first is, if the board wants to first create the committee.
That's what I thought. But first I have to submit a request that we set this committee up, what it looks like. You have to then write it all up with all the whereases and the there.
Well, actually, I had submitted, circulated a resolution. I just didn't put any of the names of the potential appointees.
Right, so we have to do that.
Right, that would have to be done.
Right, so I did a memo, an email. A couple of folks said to me, could you just give me an email that lists like how it started, where we are? So everybody that was on there, that was a volunteer. So people who are on there are a member of the DA department or chief of police. They're not actually volunteers. They were requested to be on there. They were not called, but the volunteers were. And most of them would like to continue. Some of them prefer not to. Either they've moved on, they have other things going on, they're busy, etc. One of them is a hybrid. Christina Picciano does not want to be on the next advisor, so she will not. Her name will not be on it, but she's already helping Officer Chavez with the LGBTQ plus language and a bunch of other things. So she's a bit of a hybrid, but she's not going to be on advisory. In addition, I have spoken to Jermaine Smith. I have spoken to Vernon, spoken to 2 or 3 other people. We're trying to get some younger folks, but they are unable to join. I will keep looking. So I have a bunch of names to submit that were both on the working, and then additional people that showed interest. And we have so I sent an email to most of the members on the working committee and the ones that said they were interested in joining this committee and to do the volunteer work, and sent a copy to Stuart, really just giving background. And then Jermaine and I think Jennifer and a couple of other people then sent me back notes and said, you know, about this and where did you get that? And I'm not sure this is how accurate it is and that, and I read all of that and I'll take that into account. But mostly Stuart, I think the piece that we put together, I just want to revisit based on some of the commentary, because some of them, there was an error and one of the numbers, etc. So we'd like to start with that committee. I want to recommend to the board, not to wait for yet another meeting, that we effectuate a new committee and add a new committee to our roster to help with this as part of the police reform plan, as part of the outcome of that. And the board will then need to choose a chair, and all of the pieces are in there. And that I have the names. So I don't know if I publicly am saying the names now as far as a nomination, or I do that separately with the board. It's
I would, if my suggestion, Mayor, if it's okay, is that we're going to have an exec tonight on matters of personnel. This is technically a matter of personnel. You can present.
That's why I'm asking.
Then, and then if the board is okay with that, those names can all be put onto the resolution as, you know, in addition to the creation of the committee.
Okay, but we should vote now. So we're not, I'd like to get it done tonight so we can get this done in 2021. I mean,
okay.
You know, so if that's okay with the board, I'd like to create this new committee and start moving forward on it. And so I'd like to put that into a vote now.
Mayor, if you'd like, I can actually find the resolution I did. And
no, we have to put the names down, and there are a couple of pieces that were brought to my attention. So I think we're going to.
Okay, so we may well need to have a special meeting next week, because there is a resolution, I think, that has to deal with 200 Main Street in terms of a bid. So we could actually have that resolution ready for next week if the board wanted to, and could vote on it then with the names. So that way it'd be ready for the 8th of December.
Okay, it won't take long for the special meeting, because as you said, you've already done it. So right. I think that all of us agreed that we're doing this committee, but if somebody says right now, like, you know what, I don't think so, they need to sort of speak up, because we're sort of moving this forward. Is the most polite way. And, you know, I'm losing my words right now. Long day. Are we good to go with creating the committee, and we'll put it into a vote when we put all the names and we see all the words and make sure that we covered all of the, a couple of edits that were brought to my attention that need to be done. Okay. Stuart, you good with this?
Yes, Mayor. I think that'll be fine.
And then you have to publicly notice it because it's legislation, right? Creating a committee is legislation or policy?
No, well, we have committees that we have just created. For example, when we did we did the working committee for the CPCRB, we just created a committee to do that. We didn't actually do legislation. If we were actually gonna, I think we can do this by resolution. I don't think we need to actually.
Fabulous. That's why I'm asking.
Yep.
It's been a while, actually. I mean, look, we don't sit around adding committees every day. We have task forces, we have all sorts of stuff, but this will be added to the roster of committees that we've had, some of which last for years. Good. Any other comments, questions? Okie dokie. All righty. This feels like we're concluding the meeting.
Yes.
Do we have anything else?
Not in the main meeting, Mayor. No,
okay. All right. So do we go into motion? We're going into exec matter of personnel?
Yes, please.
Okay. So do I have a motion to go into executive meeting for a matter of personnel?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, folks. This concludes our meeting, 9:40 p.m., 12/1. Welcome to December. I hope everybody joins us for both events on Thursday night and on Friday night. Always a fun time in the community. For the holidays, they come together this year, so should be a fun time for the families, for the kids, for the community. I hope folks join us, and we'll see everybody next week. People want to join us for a work session. Have a good evening.